After I was diagnosed with a terminal illness. Not a single person in my family believed me. My parents mocked me with cold sarcasm. And Willow flaunted her affection with the fake young master right in front of me all day long. In my despair, I prepared to end my life, but suddenly, a stream of bullet comments appeared before my eyes. They read, "Here we go again. Male leads in death-driven storytelling are all pathetic losers, always fantasizing about using their death to punish their family and some trashy woman. What? You think dying will make them regret it? How spineless can you get? You're already dead, so what if they regret it afterward? Does that make you happy? That's the most disgusting part of death-driven storytelling." I laughed. Who said death-driven storytelling couldn't be satisfying? The next second, I wrote down a lethal curse, swallowed the talisman, and hanged myself right at the front gate of my home. When I opened my eyes again, I was floating in midair, radiating overwhelming resentment. Smiling like a vengeful spirit, the bullet comments were stunned. Wait, why does it suddenly feel like chills are crawling down my spine? If you feel chills, that's right. This is now a revenge power fantasy about a vengeful ghost. Chapter 1. Looking at my own eerie, terrifying form, I smiled from the bottom of my heart. I had really become a ghost. So, according to the usual plot, I should float in the air, watch my family cry in regret, beat their chests in grief, and then secretly feel satisfied before reincarnating. What's the point of that? I might be dying from a terminal illness, but I refuse to die for nothing. 10 years of being trafficked, how much suffering did I endure? 3 years after coming home, how many cold stares did I receive? I remember it all. I raised my eyes toward the villa's front gate. My corpse swayed in the darkness before dawn, heavy dark circles, deathly pale skin, hollow eyes, a truly horrifying sight. The first person to discover me, the maid, burst into tears on the spot. Forget making breakfast. Her scream shattered the silence of the villa. Lights flicked on one by one, followed by an increasing chorus of screams. Finally, my family was awakened. Wrapped in their pajamas, they hurried downstairs. Chapter 2. My father strode forward with authority and barked, "What's all the noise?" The maids trembled, all pointing toward the front gate. My father took one look, his expression changed drastically. My mother and sister noticed as well. A flicker of shock and panic flashed through their eyes, but their instinct wasn't to rush over and save me. Instead, they stepped back several paces. Fear outweighed any love. I let out a cold laugh. If it had been the fake young master, Makoto, hanging there, even if his corpse had started to rot, they would have rushed over without hesitation. At that moment, Makoto came downstairs, yawning, frowning as he muttered, "Dad, Mom, Sis, what's going on? It's not even dawn yet." My sister Willow quickly blocked his view. "It's nothing. Go back to sleep. It's fine." But Makoto didn't listen. He shoved her aside. What exactly happened? The moment he finished speaking, he froze, because he saw my swaying corpse. He let out a shrill scream and collapsed onto the floor. Willow hurried to help him up, comforting him repeatedly. "It's okay. It's just George being a lunatic, who hangs himself in the middle of the night. So unlucky." My mother echoed, "Good boy. Go back upstairs and sleep. Your father and I will handle it." Makoto hummed in response and got up, looking regretful as he walked upstairs, but I clearly saw the undisguised delight at the corner of his lips. No matter how scared he looked, seeing me dead still made him happy. At this moment, the bullet comments exploded. "This family is insane, their own son hanged himself and they're completely indifferent. Damn it, I want to chop Makoto down so badly. Heh, saw this coming. The male lead died for nothing, serves you right for playing death-driven storytelling." Some of the comments even pitted me. Little did they know, I wasn't sad at all, from the moment I hanged myself at the front gate with a curse in my mouth. This stopped being any kind of pathetic death-driven storytelling. Chapter 3. My rage surged wildly, making my presence even more sinister. Suffering while alive, despised even in death, I truly received not a shred of care. Without hesitation, I lunged at my mother, intending to strangle her first. But I was suddenly repelled, my ghostly form nearly scattering apart from the force. I was stunned. What was going on? The bullet comments were equally shocked. Holy shit, so that's it, the male lead killed himself for revenge. His mom is a devout Buddhist. She's wearing a consecrated amulet blessed by a master. He won't be able to kill her easily. So it's not death-driven storytelling. I'm topping up to read more right now. I looked at my mother's neck. A faint flash of golden light flickered and vanished. Only then did I remember, she always wore a Buddhist amulet. The irony was almost laughable. She only turned to Buddhism after I was trafficked. Day and night, she prayed to the gods, hoping to find me again. But when she finally did, she favored the fake young master, Makoto. Her disgust toward me ultimately outweighed whatever love she had. I let out a cold smile, slowly floating upward as I turned my gaze toward my father. He wasn't wearing any amulet. Chapter 4. By now, My father had completely calmed down. He ordered the servants to take my body down, then made a phone call. The hearse from the funeral home would likely arrive soon. He said, "No one is allowed to spread what happened tonight. If I hear a word of it, I won't go easy on you." After threatening the servants, he turned to my mother and said, "There's no need to attempt any rescue. Have the funeral home take him away for cremation as soon as possible." My mother hesitated for a moment, then nodded heavily. "All right, sigh. This child, how could he be so foolish?" She didn't want me to die, but now that I was dead, her sorrow was no more than a ripple in the ocean. My father told her not to be upset. He even complained about me instead. George deliberately hanged himself at our front gate. He clearly wanted to disgust us. I told you long ago, there's something wrong with his head. There was something wrong with me. 10 years of being trafficked had nearly shattered my body and mind. After returning home for 3 years, I thought I could heal. Instead, I was completely broken. How could I not be sick? Since you all made me this way, then I'll make you all die. Chapter 5. Soon, people from the funeral home arrived. My corpse was loaded into the vehicle, and the family driver took my father along to the funeral home. I sat in the car, staring gloomily at my stern-faced father. I didn't act immediately. Instead, I focused on adapting to my ghostly state. During that time, I discovered I could tug at my father's clothes, which meant I could interact with objects in the living world. As dawn approached, a faint light appeared in the east. I began to feel uncomfortable. Clearly, daytime wasn't suitable for ghosts. My ability to cause harm weakened significantly. Physical attacks like choking or strangling became much harder to execute. But for a ghost to harm someone, all it needed was to exploit fear. With that thought, I experimented. With a shift of my will, I suddenly manifested. My father remained unmoved. He couldn't see me, but through the rearview mirror, I saw my own reflection: blackened face, deathly pale skin, blood-red pupils, terrifying even to myself. The driver, Tom, suddenly stiffened. His hair stood on end, cold sweat pouring down his face. He had caught a glimpse of me in the mirror. I quickly concealed myself. Tom was a good man. For the past 3 years, he had driven me to school and often comforted me. I didn't want to scare him to death. He rubbed his eyes hard, seeing that I was gone. He even turned his head to check, then let out a trembling sigh of relief. My father frowned. "What's wrong?" Tom wiped his sweat, hesitating to speak. My father grew impatient and told him to talk. Only then did Tom say, I think I just saw George." My father snorted coldly. "Are you implying something? You think he turned into a ghost?" Tom didn't dare say another word. Only then did my father relax slightly. "Even if he did become a ghost, what's there to be afraid of? This is all his own doing." Tom sighed quietly and continued driving. That day, my father handled my funeral arrangements and had me cremated immediately. I watched everything coldly. Only when he returned to the company, walking alone into his office, did I reveal a chilling grin. Night fell once again. The discomfort faded. It was time for me to make my move. Chapter 6. I drifted into the office. My father was holding a glass of red wine, leisurely admiring the night view outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, as if the death of his son today was nothing more than a trivial matter. I lunged forward and clung onto his back. He didn't have any strong reaction, just frowned slightly, then rubbed his neck, feeling a bit uncomfortable. At that moment, my mother called, asking if he had finished handling the cremation. He replied, "It's done. From now on, we only have one son, Makoto." His tone was calm. My mother fell silent for a moment. A trace of desolation crept into her voice as she said, "But, he was our biological son. So what? We've already given him more than enough. He was the one who turned out rebellious. We've done nothing against our conscience." My father snorted heavily. My mother had no reply and could only hang up. I narrowed my eyes, resentment surging within me like a storm. "You've given me more than enough. Then why, when I was hospitalized, could you go on vacation with Makoto without a second thought? Why, when I was bullied at school, did none of you spare even a moment to stand up for me? Why, when I placed my cancer diagnosis right in front of you, were you still busy looking at Makoto's report card?" I clenched my teeth, and suddenly manifested. Because the glass could act as a mirror, my form instantly appeared in my father's eyes. He let out a scream. The wine glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor as he stumbled backward in panic. I remained motionless behind him, staring at him with venomous hatred. Certain he hadn't imagined it, he fled without even daring to look back. Inside the elevator, he forced himself to calm down, glancing around while reaching behind him. Of course, he touched nothing. Just as he began to feel relieved, I raised my fist and slammed it hard into his face. The blow sent him staggering. Terrified, he shouted, "Help! Someone, help!" But his voice couldn't get out. I didn't stop. Punch after punch rained down. My face twisted with the exhilaration of venting years of rage. I still remembered, a year ago, in a moment of fury, I punched Makoto to the ground. In truth, he had set me up, deliberately provoking me, but that enraged my father. Blazing with anger, he had me restrained and told Makoto to return the blows tenfold. That day, I was beaten until my face was swollen and bruised, blood spilling from my mouth. Only when Makoto was satisfied did my father stop it. Now, I would return it tenfold as well. My father's face quickly swelled into something unrecognizable, and with the heavy resentment clinging to me, his entire face turned stiff, dark as charred coal. The bullet comments exploded. Holy shit, this is real revenge. His nose is completely smashed. The male lead is terrifying, but this is so satisfying. Still not enough. That old bastard deserves to die. I thought the same. He had to die. Chapter 7. In his struggle, the elevator doors opened. My father rushed into the parking lot, fled into his company car, and sped away. He thought he had escaped. Little did he know, I was sitting quietly in the back seat. When the car reached a deserted suburban road, and there were no other vehicles around, I revealed myself. This time, I appeared again through the rearview mirror, but now, my lips were split into a ghastly grin, fangs bared, my face twisted as I closed in on him. From the corner of his eye, my father caught sight of me in the mirror. The relief he had just felt vanished instantly, his soul nearly leaving his body. The car began to swerve wildly, like a leaf caught in the wind. As I drew closer and closer, he wailed in terror. Son, I was wrong, I was wrong. Don't kill me, go away, go away. Why would I leave? I lunged at him. His entire body went heavy and cold. Through the mirror, he saw my face right beside his. At last, he completely broke. Bang. The car lost control, crashing into the guardrail, spinning 5 or 6 times before flipping upside down. The frame was nearly crushed. I crouched on the ground, watching my father bleed out. He had only his last breath left. Trapped in the wreckage, he howled weakly, using all his strength to beg, "George, save me, save me." He couldn't see me, but he knew I was there. I stood up and brushed off my hands. Save him? How could I? Soon, his blood ran dry, and he died in extreme pain and terror. Amid the cheering of the bullet comments, I revealed, for the first time in 3 years since returning home, a genuine smile. Chapter 8. Just as I was about to leave, my father's shattered phone rang. I tapped to answer. My mother's voice came from the other end. "Old man." I don't know why, but my heart's been racing. "Are you all right?" Of course. My father couldn't respond. She sounded puzzled. "Say something. Where are you?" Still, there was no reply. The next second, Willow's voice came from the side. "Mom, why are you worrying for nothing? Based on past experience, Dad's definitely in a meeting. He probably just didn't want you to worry if he didn't pick up." "Stop bothering him," my mother said uneasily. "But I just have a bad feeling." "You're overthinking it," Willow cut in, snatching the phone. "Hang up for now." "Mom, you should go shopping or something. Staying at home all day is making you imagine things." "I've already made plans with my friends anyway." "Gotta wash off the bad luck." "George, that lunatic, is seriously disgusting." My mother sighed helplessly. "Go check on your father at the company first, then go have fun." "Got it," Willow replied half-heartedly. She definitely wouldn't go look for him. I didn't linger any longer. I drifted toward the Mirage Night Bar, the place Willow frequented. "Dear sister, you're next." Chapter 9. When I arrived at the bar, the atmosphere was already at its peak. I spotted Willow at a glance. With exquisite makeup and an arrogant expression, she sat in the most expensive booth, surrounded by a crowd of fawning men. One of them, smiling obsequiously, asked why she didn't seem very happy tonight. She rolled her eyes. "I'm not unhappy. I just ran into something unlucky. Totally disgusted me." The unlucky thing she was referring to was, of course, me hanging myself. In truth, even before I died, she had always considered me bad luck. Even on the first day I returned home, she called me unlucky, just because I didn't change my shoes in time and dirted the floor. She rolled her eyes to the heavens, firing off sarcastic, cutting remarks one after another. But after years of loneliness and insecurity, finally finding my family, for 3 years, I had carefully tried to please her, buying her gifts, running errands for her. Yet every single time, she would sneer coldly, "Get lost, you disgusting jinx." Now that I was dead, hanging right in front of them, she still thought of me as bad luck. I laughed too, 100 times more vicious than her. Then, I locked onto a man in the corner who clearly didn't fit in. He looked drained, hollow-eyed, like someone severely lacking vitality. To me, he was the perfect target. His life force was weak, making him easy to possess. Such a person wasn't easy to come across. Like a gust of wind, I drifted over and effortlessly took over his body. Meanwhile, Willow playfully brushed away a hand that had slid onto her thigh, scolding with feigned annoyance for the men to behave. The men just laughed, pinching her cheek. "Then let's get rid of the bad luck for our Willow. Everyone drink up, tonight, it's all on me." Hell yeah. The crowd erupted in cheers, drinking wildly. Only I didn't drink. Instead, I pulled out a pack of cigarettes, took one, and lit it. I have now possessed this man who indulged in excessive lust. I am him. As I exhaled smoke lazily, Willow noticed me. She frowned, coughing lightly, clearly displeased. What are you doing? I replied. Can't you see? Smoking. I answered lazily, staring at her with amusement. She snapped angrily. Can't you see there are so many girls here, making us breathe second-hand smoke? Do you have any manners at all? Everyone around turned to look at me. I simply crossed my legs, blew out another puff of smoke, and said even more provocatively, looking at you feels like bad luck. Needed a smoke to calm myself. The crowd was stunned. Willow was just about to explode, but then she seemed to recognize me. Curling her lips in mockery, she sneered. Oh, I was wondering who it was. Martin. Isn't this that simp who chased after me? Even tried to act all tough last time, sending me muscle pics. Turns out in bed he's a 3-second man. Hilarious. I laughed too. Give me a break. You're full of infections. I lost interest the moment I saw you. You don't even deserve 3 seconds. A collective gasp spread through the crowd. Willow instantly exploded in rage, grabbing a glass and splashing it at me. I dodged nimbly and raised my voice. Miss Lou, don't lose your temper. Just because you've got issues doesn't mean you need to freak out. There are always people who aren't picky, but I just think you're dirty. Shut up. Willow raised her hand and rushed over to slap me. I didn't hold back at all. I kicked her straight to the ground, throwing the entire place into chaos. A few rich kids, having had enough of the show, stepped in to teach me a lesson. As I ran, I deliberately knocked over drinks at nearby booths, creating even bigger disorder. Willow grew even more furious, screaming hysterically, "Are you all useless? Kill him for me." She didn't notice. Camera flashes were going off all around. The disgraceful scene of this so-called high society young lady was already spreading rapidly across the internet, and the thing Willow cared about most was her reputation. Chapter 10. Taking advantage of the chaos, I easily left the bar, got into a taxi, and told the driver to take me to the hospital. Only after entering the hospital and going through a checkup did I leave that sickly body behind. Then I drifted all the way back to the Lou residence. It was already past midnight, yet the Lou house was brightly lit. My mother was scolding Willow. Look at yourself. It's all over the internet now. Do you still have any dignity as the Lou family's daughter? Willow Lou's face flushed red as she stared fixedly at the video on her phone. Naturally, it was footage of her losing control at the bar. She had completely lost her composure, shouting, cursing, even slapping a waiter. The person filming kept narrating. Whoa, look at this. The Lou family's daughter is going crazy. Looks like she got triggered by someone she hooked up with. Sounds like he said she's full of infections. Haha. Amid the noisy background, mocking voices rang out everywhere. Full of infections. Is that real? Hey, she's that pretty. Even if she's toxic, I'd still go for it. Bang. Willow smashed her phone onto the ground in fury, then fell backward stiffly, fainting on the spot. My mother was terrified and rushed to help her, but at that moment, the housekeeper Tom burst into the villa in the dead of night. Madam, something's wrong. Chairman Lou, he's been in a car accident. My mother's body trembled. She didn't even spare Willow another glance. Flustered, she ran out the door, only telling the maids to take care of Willow. I stared at her retreating figure. Around her neck, that faint golden glow still lingered. That amulet really was troublesome, but for now, I'd deal with Willow first. My original plan had been to anger Willow into falling ill, weakening her so I could possess her. Unexpectedly, her temper was so explosive that she fainted outright. Even better, fainting from overwhelming anger meant her life force was weakened as well. She couldn't possibly resist a vengeful spirit like me. Chapter 11. The moment I possessed her, I opened my eyes. The maids let out sighs of relief, moving to help me rest. I rolled my neck, speaking stiffly. Where's Makoto? A maid replied. The young master is resting. He had some trouble sleeping today and just fell asleep. I sneered. Looks like he felt at least a bit guilty, enough to lose sleep. I strode upstairs, stopping in front of Makoto's room. I paused. As expected of the future heir of the Lou family, his room was the largest in the house, luxuriously equipped with everything imaginable. A private bathroom and walk-in closet, fitness equipment, even a fully equipped gaming room. Every time I saw it, I used to envy him to the point of drooling, but I wasn't greedy. When I had just returned home, they asked what I wanted. I only said I wanted a high-end computer. They agreed, but then completely forgot. Instead, Makoto didn't forget. Smiling, he said, "Bro, I'll take you to pick one in a few days." At first, I thought he was a good person, so when he invited me to play games in his room, I foolishly went in without hesitation. But I never expected. In the short time he stepped out to grab a drink, he had called the entire family over, accusing me of taking over his room and driving him out. Then, putting on a high-minded act, he generously offered to give up the room. Seeing him twist the truth so blatantly, I was furious and rushed at him to hit him. But my father grabbed my collar and slammed me to the ground. No matter how I explained, no one believed me. My mother stood to the side, her expression complicated. My sister stood beside her and scolded me. Have you no shame? You haven't even changed your surname yet and you already think you're the heir? Just looking at you makes me feel unlucky, disgusting trash. I felt like I had fallen into an icy abyss. All I could do was return to my room, listening to Willow shouting orders at the servants outside. Clean everything, disinfect thoroughly. Are you all blind? Can't you keep an eye on George? From now on, he's forbidden from entering my brother's room. That was the first time I truly felt humiliation, and the first time I realized my family never loved me. Pulling myself back to the present, I rolled my neck again. I wasn't used to Willow's body, after all. It was structurally different from a man's, but as a vengeful spirit, I adapted quickly. Without another word, I kicked open Makoto's door. After 3 years, I was back. Chapter 12. Makoto was confused. He had been woken up, staring at me in a daze. Willow, what's going on? I strode forward, grabbed him, and yanked him straight off the bed. What's going on? I sneered. Your dad is dead, and you can still sleep. You're just a fake young master, yet you really think you're the heir? Just looking at you makes me feel sick, disgusting trash. I cursed while dragging him. Makoto still hadn't figured out what was happening. His head slammed against the floor, and he winced in pain. Ow, what are you doing? Seeing that worthless look on his face only made me angrier. I slapped him hard, smack, and shouted. You still dare ask me what I'm doing? Your dad is dead, get up and start mourning. That slap finally snapped him awake. He raised his hand to block me, trying to push me away, but he was facing Willow, possessed by a vengeful ghost. His strength couldn't move me at all. Gritting his teeth, he snapped. Sis, have you lost your mind? I didn't respond. I just kept slapping him. Every strike carried full force. By the time his face had swollen into a pig's head, he burst into curses. Willow, are you fucking insane? He even shouted at the servants outside. Are you all insane too? Pull her away from me. The servants exchanged uneasy glances, hesitating, too afraid to step forward. I let out a sinister grin, just about to twist Makoto's neck, when suddenly, my soul trembled. A voice echoed. Who is this? Am I dreaming? It was Willow. That wretched woman had woken up. Her consciousness was clashing with mine, thinking all of this was just a dream. She wasn't actually sick or injured, she had only fainted from anger, which gave me the chance to possess her. Now that she had regained consciousness, she was starting to push me out. Without hesitation, I got up and ran out of the room. Willow's voice continued to question me. Who are you? What are you doing? I ignored her. Then suddenly, she seemed to realize something. George? My footsteps paused for a moment. Her voice rose sharply as she shouted. George, you bastard, get out of my dream. She couldn't understand what was happening, so she could only explain it as a dream, believing I had invaded it. I looked up. The rooftop was just ahead. No rush. Chapter 13. I rushed all the way up to the rooftop in one breath. Our luxurious villa had a full 7 floors. Falling from the top meant certain death. In one swift motion, I vaulted over the railing and stood at the edge, staring straight down at the ground below. Willow, who thought this was a dream, snapped fully awake. I could feel her body trembling violently. My soul wasn't faring well either. I was being burned by the living body, on the verge of being expelled, but I endured the discomfort, grinning as I said, Sis, you're not dreaming. You'll be seeing me very soon. Willow's body shook like a leaf. She screamed in sheer terror. George, what are you doing? What's happening? By now, chaos had erupted downstairs. Under the bright lights, all the servants saw me standing at the rooftop's edge. Makoto, his face still swollen, stood below, shouting up at me. Willow, have you lost your mind? Don't jump. But Willow didn't want to jump. The more control she regained over her body, the more she could feel the terror of the height. Her voice trembled as she shouted. George, step back, step back. She was still shouting, but her voice was already shaking. I lifted one foot into the air, smiling as I said, Sis, weren't you always so sharp-tongued? Didn't you always tell me to just jump off a building and die? So, I've decided to do exactly that. In this family, the one who despised me the most had always been Willow. There were 2 words she used that I would never forget. Jinx, and jump off a building. Every time she saw me, she called me a jinx. Whenever she was angry, she told me to go jump and die. I remembered that time I was hospitalized. The whole family was out traveling. All I did was say during a video call that my stomach hurt so badly I wanted to die. Willow got annoyed, saying I was ruining her mood, telling me that if I wanted to die, I should just jump off a building and stop bothering them. And now, I was really about to step off, controlling Willow's body. I moved outward inch by inch. Willow screamed in panic, her voice shifting from anger to pleading, and finally to sobbing uncontrollably. Through choked sobs, she begged, "George, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Please, don't jump. Please step back, please." My tone remained calm, my face expressionless. "No, you don't know you were wrong. You just know that you're about to die." With the final step, amid Willow's piercing scream, amid the horrified cries from below, I plunged headfirst down. Blood splattered everywhere. Her skull burst like a smashed watermelon. Tonight, the night was truly beautiful. Chapter 14. The Liu family was in complete chaos. Makoto was so frightened he was almost in a daze. He sat on the sofa, trembling, his fingers stiff as he tried to call his parents, but no one answered. I originally planned to take the opportunity to finish him off, but when I thought of my mother's Buddha amulet, I held back for now. I needed to set something up, get rid of that amulet first. At daybreak, my mother rushed back in a panic. Willow's body was already covered with a white sheet. Filthy blood was everywhere, and the stench of iron filled the air. Most of the maids in the villa had fled, because Willow had looked like she was possessed last night. The Liu family was haunted. When my mother saw the white sheet, she froze on the spot. She didn't even dare to approach. It wasn't until Makoto staggered out, trembling, and stammered, "Mom." "Willow, she." He couldn't finish, but my mother had already guessed something. In disbelief, she moved forward step by step, her body shaking, and after struggling for a long time, she finally lifted a corner of the sheet. Then she saw Willow's shattered, mangled body. My mother let out a piercing scream and nearly fainted on the spot. Makoto had never been particularly brave. He could barely handle himself, let alone comfort her. My mother wailed, "Willow, what happened to you? Old Liu died in a car accident, and now you too. Oh heavens, why are you doing this to us? Why?" I smiled from the side, because heaven is merciful. She cried for a long while before finally calling someone to handle the aftermath. When Willow's body was taken away, my mother seemed as if her soul had been hollowed out. She sat on the ground blankly, tears silently streaming down her face. By now, Makoto had calmed down a little. After learning that his father had also died, he thought things over, goosebumps rising on his skin. Before speaking, he said, "Mom, a lot of the maids are terrified. They're saying our house is haunted. I think it might be true, especially my sister. She was too strange. She slapped me so many times, then jumped off the building. She didn't say a word, and she was even smiling when she jumped." Hearing this, my mother shuddered. She regained a bit of her composure, but fell into deep thought. After a long pause, her voice hoarse, she murmured, "Could it be? George has come back." Chapter 15. The moment my mother said that, Makoto jolted in fright. He had actually guessed it too, but didn't dare say it out loud. All he could do was glance fearfully toward the villa entrance, as if I were still hanging there. My mother said, It's okay, we'll go find a priest to take a look." She took a deep breath and was about to take Makoto out. She was almost certain by now, it was me causing all of this. Just as they were about to step out the door, I raised my hand and waved it. A gust of cold wind swept through, and the front door slammed shut with a loud bang. My mother and Makoto screamed in terror and stumbled back toward the sofa. I exerted force again, sealing all the windows. Now, the villa had become a completely enclosed haunted house. Makoto was as timid as a mouse. He completely broke down on the spot. "Help! Murder! Help!" His voice echoed through the empty villa, but not a single sound reached outside. My mother was much calmer. She wiped the cold sweat from her forehead, looked around, and spoke in a trembling voice. "George, my child, is that you?" I felt like throwing up every time she called me that. It made my stomach churn. I summoned a mirror and wrote a few blood-red words on it. "Take off the amulet." Then I tossed the mirror at my mother's feet. The sudden appearance of the mirror startled them again. When they saw the words, my mother realized something. She immediately clutched the amulet tightly in her hand. She was quite clever. She grasped the key point right away and said to Makoto, "Makoto, I understand now. He can't harm us. We have the amulet protecting us. It's been blessed by a master. It can keep us safe." Makoto was overjoyed. His hands stopped shaking, his legs steadied, and he immediately stepped in front of my mother. "Mom, don't be afraid. I'll protect you." I grinned. I went into the kitchen, grabbed a fruit knife, and walked straight toward Makoto. They couldn't see me, but they could see the knife. The gleaming blade lunged straight at Makoto. He panicked instantly. With a quick dodge, he hid behind my mother, but the knife circled around and continued stabbing toward him. My mother shouted anxiously, "George, he's your younger brother." "Your younger brother, my ass." I sped up and drove the knife straight into Makoto's butt. His backside burst open, blood spilling everywhere. Terrified, he scrambled wildly toward the stairs, I chased after him with the knife and gave his other side a stab as well. He howled like a ghost in agony and ran back toward my mother. My mother, both shocked and terrified, kept trying to persuade me to stop, but suddenly she cried out in pain. Makoto had yanked the amulet right off her neck. I nodded in satisfaction. Makoto, you're quite clever. Chapter 16. Mom, let me wear it. Makoto grabbed the amulet and put it on, still shaken as he clutched his injured backside. My mother was terrified, but she didn't try to take the amulet back, so I turned the knife toward her. Still avoiding anything fatal, I stabbed wherever it wouldn't kill her, her butt, her thighs, her back. She screamed in pain, retreating again and again behind Makoto. When she could no longer endure it, she reached out for the amulet. Makoto, let Mom wear it. Makoto's eyes flickered. Instead of helping her, he pushed her away and ran to the other side. My mother froze, her face turning ashen. My son, how could you? Makoto waved his hand dismissively. Don't call me your son. We're not related by blood. This has nothing to do with me. Clutching the amulet tightly, still trembling with fear, he shouted, and even called out to me. George, every debt has its debtor. We have no grudge between us. If you want revenge, go after them. They favored me. It's not like I asked for it. I didn't know they were that stupid, loving an adopted son more than their own. Let me go. I have nothing to do with them. Every word Makoto spoke was an excuse, every word utterly cold and heartless. My mother's face grew even paler. Fear and shock intertwined, leaving her unable to stand as she collapsed heavily onto the ground. Seeing this, Makoto spat and said, It's all your fault for playing favorites. You got your husband and your daughter killed. Are you trying to kill me too? You're a beast. You don't deserve to be a mother. Shameless trash, dying 100 times wouldn't be enough for you. Makoto hurled insults wildly, all just to show loyalty to me. My mother's lips turned white. She raised a trembling hand, pointing at Makoto, shaking for a long time, yet she couldn't say a single word, but her eyes burned. That was the fury born from utter despair. Makoto continued cursing. What are you pointing at me for? You disgusting excuse for a mother, just die. After his outburst, he cautiously edged toward the door, forcing a flattering smile onto his face. Bro, please let me go. I really have nothing to do with them. Of course, I had no intention of letting him leave, but with the amulet on him, he actually managed to crash the door open himself and bolted out in an instant. I decided to let him run for now. There was still my mother to deal with. Struggling, she tried to crawl toward the exit. Her eyes were fixed on Makoto, hoping he might turn back and save her, but he quickly disappeared beyond the yard. With a wave of my hand, the door slammed shut again. In absolute despair and terror, my mother broke down in sobs, her voice cracking. My child, my child. Mom was wrong. I deserve to die. I searched for you for so many years before finding you again, and yet I still thought you weren't as good as Makoto. I was terribly wrong, my child. Please forgive me. I remained unmoved. I didn't care whether her regret was genuine. I only wanted her to suffer for the rest of her life. Death would only free her. What I wanted was for her and Makoto to live in misery, wretched and broken, for the rest of their lives. Chapter 17. I wrote more words on the mirror. This time, I demanded that she donate all her property, leaving not a single cent for herself. She didn't dare refuse. With tears streaming down her face, she nodded. I continued writing, giving her 3 days to settle everything. If it wasn't done within 3 days, I would send her to her death. My mother kept nodding, trembling in fear. I said nothing more and drifted away as a gust of cold wind. Soon, I found Makoto. He was hiding at a friend's place, clutching the amulet, trembling violently, his face pale as death. That friend was fairly loyal, repeatedly asking what had happened. Makoto replied, Don't ask, just help me get some money, and find a way to send me abroad. The friend, confused, said, That's easy. Give me your documents. I'll book you a ticket. Makoto kept trembling. My documents are at home. I can't go back. Think of another way. The friend thought for a moment. Then I'll go get them for you. Makoto opened his mouth as if to say something, hesitated, but still nodded in agreement. He was truly rotten, but I was no longer at home, and neither was my mother. So the friend easily retrieved Makoto's documents. Makoto was overjoyed. He finally stopped shaking. He immediately borrowed money from him and even asked for a few bodyguards to escort him to the airport. The friend agreed to everything and even personally sent him there. But the moment Makoto arrived at the airport, he didn't look back. He briskly boarded the plane. However, the instant he stepped into the cabin, he let out a pig-like scream, because every single face he saw was mine. Of course, this was just an illusion I created for him. When all the passengers turned their heads to look at him in unison, he completely broke down, stumbling and scrambling as he fled the plane. No one could stop him. He ran all the way into the airport restroom, hiding inside a stall, trembling uncontrollably. I floated right beside him. smiling as I waited. When he finally stepped out and faced the mirror, I appeared beside him at just the right moment. He screamed again and bolted for the door. In a cold, eerie voice, I said, go home, back to your mother, never leave, or else, die, die, die. Makoto froze. The overwhelming terror made his entire body convulse. In the end, he foamed at the mouth and collapsed unconscious in the restroom. His face just happened to land straight into a mop. Chapter 18. 3 days later, I returned home once again. My mother was on the verge of collapse, but she forced herself to stay composed as she signed donation agreements with a group of people. The company shares, properties everywhere, luxury cars under her name, anything of value was liquidated and donated away. With the pillar of the family, Father Liu, dead, the Liu family had fallen into the abyss overnight. After seeing the guests off, my mother covered her face and broke down in tears, almost as if her soul had left her body. She had enjoyed a lifetime of comfort. Now, at last, it was her turn to suffer, and to make sure she wouldn't feel lonely in that suffering, I had already made arrangements. The door opened. A listless Makoto walked in. After fainting that day, he had been lying in the hospital for 3 days and was only discharged today. The moment he got out, he rushed home, afraid that if he didn't, I would come for his life. By now, he had developed a severe psychological disorder. When my mother saw him, she didn't even have the strength to be angry anymore. She simply stared at him blankly. Makoto had no strength either. His eyes were filled only with despair and numbness. He walked to her side and stood there stiffly. At last, my mother spoke. Why did you come back? He said. George told me to return to your side. Mom, I'm still your son. Hearing this, my mother froze for a long moment. Then she grabbed her hair desperately and let out a wail. It was the howl of a wounded beast. Clearly, she had understood my intention. I wanted them to stay together forever. A bond they could never break. A shackle that would bind this mother and son for all eternity. Chapter 19. Half a year later, after traveling across the country, I returned home. This journey had been wonderful. Even though I was just a ghost, I had finally fulfilled a long-held wish. In the past, their family of 4 had traveled together countless times, while I had nothing. Now, free and unrestrained, I had truly enjoyed myself, humming a tune. I returned home. The villa had been renovated, and new people had already moved in. Clearly, that mother and son were long gone. I searched all over the city and finally found them in a garbage dump in the old district. They were filthy and disheveled, hunched over, one dragging a sack of trash, the other rummaging through garbage bins. People nearby pointed at them and said, "Those 2 lunatics are back picking through trash for food again. They've got working hands and feet, why not do something decent? Come on, they're pitiful too. Last time I threw away a bag of feces, and they fought over it like it was something valuable. In this day and age, to end up like this, it's unbelievable. It's like seeing a ghost." Their voices were loud, and every word reached the mother and son, especially that last phrase. Seeing a ghost. Makoto stopped rummaging through the trash. He began to tremble. Then, grabbing a broken bottle, he turned and stabbed toward his mother. "It's all your fault, you disgusting excuse for a mother." He roared and cursed. The jagged glass quickly stained with blood, but his mother showed no reaction. Instead, her gaze drifted, her expression dazed, as she stared in my direction. Our eyes met. Suddenly, she raised her hand and waved. "George, my child." I understood. She was about to die. Those on the brink of death can always see things they shouldn't. At this moment, she seemed to truly regret everything. Beneath her vacant gaze, there was a faint longing, a longing for me to go to her, to call her mom, or to hold her. But I simply turned away indifferently and stepped back into the shadows beneath the sunlight. Too bright. Ghosts don't like the sun. Chapter 20. After lingering in the mortal world for a while longer, I felt that all my resentment had finally dissipated. That very night, I left with the officials from the underworld, to be reincarnated. 10 months later, in a private delivery room, a baby was born. The exhausted mother looked at him, her face full of fatigue, yet her eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. The baby forced his eyes open, gazing at his mother in confusion, and suddenly let out a small laugh. So tiny, knowing nothing at all, yet he smiled. Perhaps it was because he saw the love reflected in his mother's crescent-shaped eyes.